What's good, YouTube? Cardfight King here, Aqua Life Baby. You already know how it is. So I want to make this video kind of just preparing us for the sneak peek this weekend. We kind of want to show you guys cards that I'm, basically from the past sets that I'm, prepping for this weekend. And I'm going to do this both for Maelstrom and for Thavis. And I kind of just want to get us, basically getting us ready, cards you should pick up, cards you should look out for, and things like that. It's not really like I'm showing what I'm running in my deck build, but I'm showing cards that will more likely than not be featured in my deck build. And other cards I may or may not be considering. So I kind of wanted to go over this and kind of talk about, each deck and kind of give a synopsis of more or less what it wants to do. So, obviously, starting out with Maelstrom, because I believe Maelstrom is going to be the easiest deck to build from the sneak peek this weekend, due to the fact that Maelstrom doesn't have like a VR or a lot of high rarity cards. Most of his support is like commons, rares, and a double rare. I don't know if I can't remember the rarity of Fencer. I think he may be either a double or triple. I got to double check on that, but I don't think we're going to have anything that would be considered more or less high rarity. So, this should be the easiest deck to build from the sneak this weekend based upon the cards you need to acquire. And that's pretty much it. So, let's just go ahead and get right into it. We'll kind of go talk about it. Obviously, so starting off with the triggers, I'm running 8 crit, 4 draw, 4 heal right now. The reason why we've switched to crit triggers over front triggers in Maelstrom is simply for the fact that this deck allows our OG Maelstrom here to have a guaranteed restand. This is something that I have been asking for this deck for a long time. This deck is extremely fun to play with. I'm not even, no cap. This deck is extremely fun to play with. It is definitely it's going to be a bit more high rolling as far as getting pieces that you need by your turn 3, but this deck is very fun to play with, and the fact is that they improved the core of this deck. They didn't try to do anything fancy with it or whatever it is. They improved the core of this deck, which is Maelstrom. And what Maelstrom is doing is, because we have a guaranteed restand, this kind of brings me back to the Maelstrom reverse days in a way, where you need to decide on if you want to guard Maelstrom or if you do not want to guard Maelstrom. If you do not want to guard Maelstrom, then with the crit triggers, you're opening yourself up to a lot of damage on the Maelstrom swing. And this deck aims to get between 6 to 8 drive checks per turn. Yes, this deck aims to get 6 to 8 drive checks per turn. And I said aim, not guaranteed, but aim. So you really want to put your opponent in a position where if they don't guard the Maelstrom attack, they open themselves up to getting crit, and then they have to make sure in their hand they can deal with Maelstrom guaranteed restand and then swinging again. And the possibility of you checking more triggers, stacking, blocking that, and you stack things on other thing and swing in. Not saying you're going to hit triggers every time. I've done it, but that's kind of the gist of it, is that you're giving yourself more drive checks and more opportunities to slap damage on the board, over just getting off a certain number of battles and hoping things hit. And with your abilities allowing him to restand for free, this really puts the opponent in a precarious position, because a lot of times what opponents do against Maelstrom is that they will no guard the first attack, no guard the first attack, hope to hit a trigger to cancel out the Vanguard attack, whatever it is. Then they'll no guard the Vanguard attack, block the third and fourth battle, and then block the third and fourth battle, and then your fifth attack and onwards really don't have much value afterwards, other than maybe putting on an extra damage to your opponent, but it might not be, as significant as in. So what they've done was improve the core of this deck to give us a thing where it's like, okay, you can no guard the first battle, you can no guard the second battle, but I'm going to my third battle is going to proc Maelstrom skill regardless of what you do, and I'm going to have Maelstrom be a guaranteed fourth attack, and then you're going to have to deal with my other rear. Then you're going to have to deal with my other rear guard, and I'm going to be piling. I'm going to be trying to pile on as much damage as possible. So that's really a lot of what this deck is going to be doing. And moving to crit triggers, front triggers don't do anything in this deck. They really don't do anything. You want to definitely play crits. You want to slap damage on board. Even on a glory turn, a crit trigger, even though you can only apply it to one card, you're not even looking to put glory on the board until your opponent is forced to guard everything at like 5 damage or anything like that. This deck is focused solely around the core of it, which is OG Maelstrom, and then pushing glory to be that finisher. Otherwise, he's discard fodder. So looking at a few cards that you want to probably look at picking up, definitely Baragios. Now, I was not intending on playing Baragios in the deck initially, but after talking with my boy Zay from Forcios in Discord, kind of opened my eyes to things. So I was planning on playing Bubble Ball Corporal. Now, what Bubble Ball Corporal is that she is an on-hit card that we get in a new card, on-hit card in the set that allows for you to search the top 7 for a Maelstrom. That's pretty good. It's a free search, free ad. Great, right? But the thing about on-hit cards is that your opponent controls their ability. Meaning, your opponent decides whether or not to let the card hit their Vanguard. And if they choose not to hit a Vanguard, then it's just going to sit there. If they let it hit, great, you get a search off. But how impactful is that search? In this deck, searching at your grade 3s is very impactful. And again, this tests your opponent's knowledge of the Maelstrom deck. And you'll see another card that we'll bring up in a second. But with Baragios, it takes that power. And again, this is what Zay said. It takes Baragios, though he does search only the top 5 on plays, he takes the power out of your opponent's hand in determining whether or not you're going to get a search off for your grade 3 card. And he's also going to be the strongest booster in your deck at 13,000. So putting him in a column with Fencer, which is basically the Coral Assault of the deck in terms of power. That is a very devastating column in itself. That's a baseline. That would be a baseline 37k column by itself. It's very, very. It's a strong card. So Baragios, I feel again, I wasn't initially playtesting him, but now that I started to rethink that, I'm like, yo, Baragios is actually kind of nice. So that's an option for you yourself to play around with, but putting in Baragios has really kind of opened my eyes to new possibility, and again a way to improve what I was using early on in playtesting. The next card is Analyze Shooter. Now, Analyze Shooter is a very interesting card. So we got this card back in Dragon's Vanity. So he's basically he's a guaranteed Maelstrom. He's a guaranteed card to always get you your 2 Maelstroms to hand. If he hits, though. If he hits an opponent's Vanguard and the attack he boosted, you Soul Blast, discard, and you Soul Blast 1, discard 1, and you search out 1 Glory, 1 OG, and add them to your hand. Now, you're saying, hey, that's a great card. Now, I've seen a lot of builds that run between 2 to 4 copies of him. He's only a 6k booster, so his boosting value is only good just to hit certain thresholds, but he's not a fantastic card, offensively, I would say. However, he is a fantastic setup card early game. Again, this is a type of card that kind of tests your opponent's knowledge. if your opponent lets him go off early game, say they need a counterblast for their turn 2. You see him early game, you drop him behind your Vanguard, your opponent needs a counterblast for turn 2. Or your opponent needs a counterblast for turn 3. You're willing to give him a counterblast based upon your hand setup. You know, then it's kind of a decision of, well, man, if I let him hit, he's going to add 2 copies of Maelstrom as deck to his hand. So we're deck thinning 2 grade 3s out of our deck, meaning that we're increasing the number of shields that are coming to our hand, and more of an ability to hit a trigger in a sense. But some people are like, man, he's just adding grade 3s. Who cares? Well, if you have knowledge of the deck, again, when we add Maelstrom to our hand, that means that we have more discard fodder for Press Stream. And Press Stream is the one that gives us our Vanguard 10,000 power and an extra drive check, which creates the 4, 6, which creates the 8, the 6 to 8 drive checks in a turn, maybe more. You can actually get 10 checks in a turn, depending on if you go OC with your Press Streams. You top deck like that. But adding those melts in your hand, because that means that, bam, I'm going to secure my grade 3 ride. So I've already secured my grade 3 ride. I have Glory in my hand as discard fodder for Press Stream, or I'm going to have a Glory in my hand for when I re-ride Glory late game. You're going to be in trouble if you're at 5 damage. So it does put your opponent in a precarious position if they have, depending on their knowledge of, what the deck does, what it wants to achieve, and where they're at with their own game. So the thing about Maelstrom that you guys need to understand is that Maelstrom is all about putting your opponent in difficult decision-making situations, making them think, if I guard this, then I'm not going to have counterblast for this turn, but I'm going to prevent him from searching. If I don't guard this, I'll be able to do my turn, but if I don't have an effective turn here, then he could potentially have an extremely strong Maelstrom turn, on the rebound. So this is what really this card does. Late game, he's not a good card. Really, he's more or less he's better served as a 10k booster, or excuse me, a 10k blocker late game, but I think he's a really good early to mid game type of card. Then we are looking at Viviana. So Viviana, you guys know, especially you guys who follow the channel, from my past videos, I really hate this card. This card, dude, oh my goodness, she was such a bad card, dude. So her ability is that when she boosts, if it's a 3rd battle or more and the attack hits a Vanguard, she gets to go into Soul, you get to draw a card and give the card +3. The +3 is kind of like with OG Maelstrom's +3, where it will bring certain cards up to or above a certain threshold in order to force out an additional shield or a shield for guarding. So it takes a 12k card, turns into 15, so your opponent's going to have to either intercept or respect the damage. It can take something from 32 to 35, which is the difference between using them needing a heal trigger or them needing a heal trigger plus another shield. So that would be, instead of 1 card in hand, that could be 2 cards. So the +3 can make a huge difference depending on, when it comes to different guarding situations. But she goes into Soul, she'll fill the Soul, and she'll get you a card. Now, why is she good in this deck? Well, because we have 2 cards in the deck called Elpedia and Radiate Assault. These are the 2 most important cards that you need to target when picking up cards for Maelstrom this weekend. They're the 2 cards that allow Maelstrom to actually, guarantee on-hit effects to go off regardless. You put her in a column with Elpedia. So Elpedia is going to be a static 14k body. So it's going to make a 22k column. And that's going to be, you're going to swing with her 3rd battle. You're going to hit. Whether you hit or not doesn't matter. She's going into Soul. You're giving something plus 3,000 power to, depending, and look at your numbers on the board and see where that 3,000 power needs to go to make a difference in terms of guarding. And then you get to draw a card. Then you'll be able to go and proc Maelstrom skill to discard and restand. So she gives you an extra card in your hand, an extra card, maybe another one in him when you don't need him, to discard card for the restand ability, and you're only discarding 2. So this deck can definitely plus really well. Same thing with Radiate Assault. You put her in a column with Radiate Assault. Yeah, it's a weak 16k column, so it can just poke your opponent. That's fine. She's going into Soul. You're drawing a card. You're giving +3 to something else, and then you're restanding Maelstrom. She's really a card that you just want to put on your side. She serves as a booster for either the right or left rear guard, whatever rear guard you're using to swing on the third battle of the turn. That is where you really want her to go. That's her ideal spot. So playing her in the deck as a 4 of, I've been testing her as a 4 of. She's been working very well. Sometimes you don't need her. Sometimes, yeah, she becomes discard fight or whatever it is. But again, once you get Elpedia onto the board, put her behind it. It's a beautiful thing. So yeah, so Viviana definitely makes a return to the deck. I was surprised as well, but hey, that deck, the deck allowed it. Again, the thing about it is that that Bushiroad did a good job with Maelstrom, and they improved the core of the deck, which allowed us to pull out other cards that could, that will support that core. Press Stream, the best card. I would argue he is the best card in the deck outside of our enablers, because what Press Stream does, and again, he's the other card that came out with Analyze Shooter in Dragon's Vanity. So Analyze Shooter pretty much sets up your Press Stream. Press Stream, you discard you counterblast 1, discard a Maelstrom, and your Maelstrom Vanguard gets an extra 10,000 power and an extra drive check for the turn. He keeps it for the turn. Obviously, you know what that means. You open him up turn 3. You discard it. So now Maelstrom has 3 drive checks and 10,000 extra power. So he's going to be at a base of 22. You're going to get 3 drive checks. You're going to have a guaranteed restand. You're going to discard 2, and you're going to have another 3 drive checks. So in total, you're going to drive 3, drop 2, and then drive 3 more. So essentially, you're from drive checks alone, you're going to be adding a total of 4 cards to your hand. If you have multiple counterblast, multiple of him on the board, and you have 2 copies of Maelstrom, for instance, well, that's 4 drive checks. That's 8 checks in total for the turn, with Radiate or Elpedia that you're going to get for Maelstrom. He is really the card that ramps up everything, pushes up the damage, and you're going to notice, with all these drive checks and everything and guaranteeing Maelstrom's restand, you're going to be going through your deck fast. But like I said, he is one of the most important cards. You definitely want to open up with him on turn 3. You don't really want to ride him, but if it comes to the decision of riding him versus riding Elpedia, or anything else that automatically procs with their battle, you want to prioritize guaranteeing Maelstrom's restand over it. But he is essentially one like the most important cards in the deck. And then obviously you want to have your Maelstrom lineup. You want to have your 4 copies of OG Maelstrom and your 4 copies of Glory Maelstrom. I got 2 XVRs. I kind of want to get 2 more XVRs, but they're a little bit too pricey. I'm kind of done pricing, making this deck as expensive as possible. That's saving for Thavis and Lambros. I'm max rareting that deck to the absolute max. This deck, I think I'm good here, but nonetheless. Again, like I said, OG Maelstrom is the focus of the deck. Glory is not. OG Maelstrom, you want to continue. He's a card you just want to sit on. It gives us an effective turn 3. He's the core of this deck. This is what you want to do. Glory Maelstrom, on the other hand, is a card where he's turned into early to mid game discard fodder and a late game ride target when, you know, restanding is not the optimal play. And you can close out the game. Your opponent's at 5. You got a stacked board. You can just drop him, give your board 10k, and start swinging in for game with that devastating guard manipulation, especially again late game. But that's pretty much where the deck is at right now. It's improved the core of Maelstrom. Now, and Maelstrom's +3 ability to the front row, that ability is okay, but you don't really need it. You rather save your counterblast for Elpedia and for press stream. That's where you really want to save your counterblasting for. Otherwise, you don't, unless you're trying to get fancy with the turn, you don't really want to use this his +3 ability. Again, unless there's nothing else you can do, use it. If not, save it for press stream and Elpedia. And then, maybe look to close out the game with glory. But that's pretty much the gist of the deck. That's pretty much everything that you really want to look at picking up. I went through a lot of the other options, and this deck doesn't really have too many other options you want to look at deck building with. Coral Assault, I think Coral Assault definitely has lost his place in the deck. Mostly because your need for soul, you don't have a great one. You don't have a great need for soul in this deck at all. And his draw is okay, but you're going through your deck at such a rapid pace that you want to maintain a 15k beater on board, and we get that in the form of the Blue Lance Fencer or whatever his name is in the set. So that's the video, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think. I'll be doing another one for Thavis, and probably get that out to you a little bit later this week. So this is Aqua Life. You already know what it is. Cardfight King. We out.